Hi everyone, Eric Olsen from Helps. Trust you can hear me okay. My name's Eric Olsen, attorney now for 46 years, a founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. Okay? And we do these YouTube live sessions Monday through Thursday. And good to have you here. Our most important message to seniors is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits, that income is protected from debt collectors. They can't take it from you. It's available for your needs. Okay. The title of the thing that our YouTube live today is National Council on Aging continuing to give false information to seniors. National Council on Aging is it's not a government organization, but they get $50 million approximately from the government each year. And their mission is to help seniors, especially those that are struggling. I could show you their mission statement. I'm going to show you an article that they just published a few days ago. Here it is. September 28, 2025. Debt collection, what older adults need to know. And they go on, they talk about, at the beginning, they talk about nearly half of Americans age 60 and over have an average income below that which need to cover basic needs. So they acknowledge that there's a lot of seniors that have a very little income, okay? And then it talks about, in fact, data shows that 1 in 5 adults age 65 and over reports having medical debt and credit card debt. So it talks about the financial problem that these seniors have. And then it talks about debt collection. How does debt collection work? What are the debt collector's rules? And talks about everything, not until you get down to the very end. Okay, and it says, what should I do if my debt is in collections? It says pay off the balance in a lump sum. Well, that doesn't do a whole lot of good for the half of seniors that are poor, can't even take care of the basic needs. Request a repayment plan, same thing. Working with a credit counselor. Now, if you click on these two links here, one will send you to an article where they talk about GreenPath. These debt management companies, nonprofit ones, with rare exceptions, won't tell a senior that their income is protected. Neither does this article. In fact, we'll go on to read it. This is just something that came out last week, a couple days ago. Then here, this is where, can a debt collector sue you if you're on Social Security? Okay, let's read it and see what they say. Yes, they can sue you, but they can't take your benefits without first winning a case against you for the specific amount the creditor says you owe. So, I mean, what does that say? It says they can sue you, but they can't take your benefits unless they win a case. So they're not telling you that your benefits are protected. In fact, they're saying they can't take your benefits unless they win a case against you. And it says even then, the debt collector successfully must seek a court order to garnish your Social Security income before they can deduct any money from it. Totally false. A debt collector gets a judgment, cannot touch your Social Security. It's protected. And this says the exact opposite. While not completely out of the question, it's generally unlikely. Well, that's because many of those who rely on Social Security are considered judgment proof. If this is true for you, or the debt collector believes it, they may not bother to pursue collection any further. It simply isn't worth their time. Boy, talk about a deceptive, or written by someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. And you know, I talked about them a lot, National Council on Aging. Any organization that gets $50 million a year from the United States government should know the facts about debt collection and seniors. This organization should. And shame on them. I speak it directly to them. Shame on you for writing an article like this. And seniors read this and they think, oh, I've got to pay this debt because if they sue me, then they can get a court order to take my Social Security. That's what this article is saying. It speaks out of both sides of the mouth. So I'm sorry if I sound upset, but I thought for a while they had read my comments or listened to my videos and they were going to back down. Not enough. No. Instead, they continue to point seniors to debt management and debt settlement because they get donations from these companies. And yet, I could show you their mission statement is to protect seniors, especially those that are struggling. And that's the half of seniors that have the seniors that are struggling financially is the half that don't have the money, and yet they're not giving them correct information. So, if any of you want to do anything, you can contact the National Council on Aging. Get on these websites and say, why are you guys doing this? Why are you giving false information? It's just beyond me. It's beyond me. Any organization, I can understand the debt management companies because they don't get any money from our government. They do. This National Council AG does get millions of dollars from the government, and yet they're steering seniors that are struggling to pay debt when they don't have to pay it. So shame on them. Okay. We'll talk about this again, but they can. Okay, so here, look, I'll show you this. Here's their mission statement. Improve the lives of millions of older adults, especially those who are struggling. Now we're talking about struggling, the ones struggling financially. That's their mission statement. Oh. So I don't mind talking to the National Council on Aging, asking them why they do this. Yeah, not one word that the income is protected, except they just steer them otherwise. Never in any of their articles have I ever read anything about them saying anything about your Social Security being protected. No one can take it. Not one. Never. Okay. So good to have you here. Sorry for the rant. Yeah, Jimmy says I did write them about it. I've not heard from them. But no, the reason, I think they're just, I don't know. I think it's because they're supported financially by some of these debt management companies, maybe Green Path. And if they were to act against them, they wouldn't get donations from them. But contact our congressman. Say why do we donate to this company? Why does the government give them money when they don't act in our seniors' interest? I'm sure some of them know who I am because I've talked about them enough. So here's another one that you can do. Sometimes regulars that listen to this channel, they wonder, well, what can I do to help? A lot of them share this information with others, which is good. But there's a lot of websites where this information can be saved, can be shared. So here's something from a website. I just happened to notice this morning, getting ready for this. Let's see here. So here's a website called QORA. And the question, what can seniors do to pay off debts? January. So seniors looking to pay off debts often feel like they're navigating a maze with no clear exit. Remember my neighbor, a sweet lady named Betty, who was buried under credit card and medical bills. She started by listing her debts, then tackled the smallest ones first, celebrating those little victories. It was inspiring. Many seniors can also benefit from negotiating with creditors or considering debt relief programs. Freedom Debt Relief for instance, help her reduce her payments significantly, giving her some breathing room. It's all about finding the right strategy that fits your, if you're in syndrome, don't hesitate to explore your options. I found this freedom debt relief comparison chart help understanding them. And I did write a response. This is what I wrote. I said, freedom debt relief never tells a senior that their Social Security and retirement income is protected by federal and state laws. I talk to seniors every day enrolled in freedom debt relief, put into utter poverty, making payments they can't afford and don't need to make. Are you a shill for freedom debt relief? I don't know if they are or not. I kind of suspect they are the way that comment. But there's a lot of websites. There's Reddit, Quora, different ones where sometimes seniors write in, and I find these when I just type in help for seniors with debt they can't afford to pay, and then they'll pop up. Sometimes I'll write an answer like I did here, and you can do the same thing. A lot of you have been listening to me long enough that you know what the law is, and you know how these companies operate, and you can correct them. So I encourage anyone to consider doing that, because the seniors need help. They need this. They need accurate information. Okay, I'll talk another one. This morning I got a call earlier. The client been enrolled in helps for quite a while and kind of upset. Mr. Olsen, my bank account got garnished for $75. They're taking $75 from me. And she was kind of frantic. And I had to talk to her, and I asked her, I said, well, okay, looks like you get like $2,100 in Social Security. Is that right? She said, yes. And how many bank accounts do you have? And she said, I have one bank account, like you said, Mr. Old, just one bank account. Did you have more than $4,200 in the bank account? Oh no, only had $75 in the bank account, Mr. Olsen. And I explained to her, so you understand that $75 is protected, but they took it, Mr. Olsen. Well, how'd you find out? Well, I found out this morning when I tried to get the money out. And then I explained to her the rule that protects bank accounts that went into effect in 2012 provides that if someone sues you and gets a judgment and the bank and the creditor were to garnish your bank account, your bank has to examine your account to determine where the money came from. And if any of it came from a federal source like Social Security or a VA benefit or federal retirement, then they takes the money you get each month and they times that times 2, and they protect that sum of money. And then she said, well, they took my money, Mr. Olsen. I said, well, the law also provides that the bank has 48 hours to examine your account, 48 working hours. And I said, you wait till this afternoon. It'll be free. If not, in the morning. And if by this time tomorrow it's still held up, call back. And she's not going to call back because they're going to release that money. It's just, it got held up temporarily when they got the garnishment form, and then the department of the bank that examines the account to determine where the money came from, when they see that it came from a federal source and it's less than twice the amount she gets each month, they're going to release it. Now, normally that doesn't take 48 hours. It takes 48 minutes, 4 to 8 minutes. They do it right away. She banked at Chase, and I said, well, for whatever reason, they're doing it a lot. And I said, okay, I'm going to send you an email, I said, that explains all this in detail. And she said, I don't have email, Mr. Olsen. And I said, that's fine. Okay. If you need an email and you want the explanation of this law, we can send that email to anyone. But I don't think she's going to call back because the bank's going to release those funds pretty quick, and she'll have them, and she won't need to worry. Now, wouldn't that be nice if the National Council on Aging could do an article that include all that, saying, hey, listen, if you're poor and you're struggling financially, you don't need to necessarily need debt management or debt settlement. You can be protected by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act from collectors calling you You can send them a cease and desist letter. They're going to leave you alone. And if they did happen to sue you, you don't need to go to court. And if they got a judgment, this is why your income and your Social Security is protected in your bank account. They could write an article about that. I'd love to write an article for them. No. Why would they do that? Give seniors information they deserve to know? I don't know. I have a hard time believing purposely they do this to deceive people. I got to think, but I don't know. It just befuddles me. Okay. If you got questions, put them in the chat feature and I'll try to answer them. Okay. And then today I put down here, I said, I listed common questions people have about helps. So, you understand what we do is we protect you so that so that creditors have to leave you alone. There's a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to communicate with us. So when people, they call us, they might call us several times, they finally enroll in helps, we can enroll you over the phone, we push a button, you'll get an email confirming you're enrolled immediately, you're going to text, fax, or email us the creditors you owe money to, we're going to send them a cease and desist letter, they're going to leave you alone. They have to talk to us, not you anymore, okay? But these are some common questions that I'm just going to go over this. Do I have to be a senior or what age to enroll in helps? It's not based on your age, it's based on your source of income. And if you get Social Security, VA benefit, disability, it doesn't matter your age. Now, it does happen that the vast majority of our clients are seniors because they get Social Security, which is protected money. But we have clients, like I said many times before, that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that are getting Social Security. Next question, can I be sued? Well, yeah, you could be sued. Anyone can sue you in this country for about anything, but you're not going to have to go to court. Even if they sued and got a judgment, they can't touch your income. It's protected. You're going to be fine. When a helps client is sued, we contact the attorney that sued you. We let them know that your income is protected. You can't afford to pay the debt. We understand that they're going to get a judgment against you. We explain this to you, send you emails that talk about the law and explains why you don't need to worry and how you're going to be okay. Next question, well, is my income protected? Yeah, and we explain how your income is protected. What about my bank account? We explain that, like I've already explained this morning or today, earlier, how your bank account is protected up to twice the amount of federal benefits you get each month. Do husband and wives enroll separately or just one? Well, you can enroll separately. I mean, if the debt is just owed by the husband, wife doesn't need to be part of this. He can enroll by himself. But if it's owed by both of you, we can enroll you together. It just depends. Okay. So after I enroll in helps, how long before the creditors stop calling? Well, you need to get us the creditors that you don't want to hear from, the debt collectors. And within 24 to 48 hours, we're going to send out a cease and desist letter to that debt collector or creditor, let him know that not to contact you anymore. So we tell people it might take 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks at the longest. We have to send the letter out. We do that right away. It might take a week for the post office to get it there. Then it might take them another week for them to process it. So, it can easily be 3 or 4 weeks. But in the meantime, when you get enrolled in helps, you're enrolled immediately. We keep you on the phone. We click a button and you get an email from us confirming you're a member of helps. That means when we hang up the phone with you, when you enroll, you're our client. And if a creditor happened to call you the next minute after we hang up, you tell them to call helps, give them their name and number, and tell them to not call you anymore, and then hang up the phone. If they call us, you're going to be on our system as our client, and we're going to tell them the same thing, not to call you anymore, and that we're sending them a cease and desist letter. Is my home at risk? I've explained this before. Almost every state has what's called a homestead equity, is the amount of equity you have in a home that's protected from a creditor taking, especially in bankruptcy, but it's simply not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after a person's home, even if you have equity in the home over and above the homestead exemption, for a lot of different reasons. You may own it with someone else. Um, you may owe a lot of money on it. It's just as a practical matter, no one's going to come after your home. You don't need to worry about that. We're glad to talk to you about that. What about my credit? Well, if you have a credit card that's still current on, you want to keep, you could still keep that credit card. So you can keep that credit. And we also have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score that we pay a company, Phil Tyrone, his company, to offer that to our clients after they've been part of HELPS for 90 days to help rebuild credit for those clients that are interested in building your credit. So what if there's already a judgment, Eric? Well, if there's a judgment, that's fine. You'll get us a copy of the lawsuit papers, or we're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued you. We're going to let them know that even though we got a judgment, you can't afford to pay it. Well, what about if I agreed to pay the judgment? I'm on a payment plan. Well, you could stop paying it. You don't need to continue paying it. Well, I agreed to pay it. Well, you can pay it if you want, but you don't have to. They can't do anything to you. They can't collect from you. You could stop paying it. Whole purpose of HELPS is that your money's freed up so you can use it for your needs. Okay. Can you help me if I owe income taxes? Well, we can get you information about income taxes. If you owe some taxes and your income is under a certain amount of money, you can often qualify for currently not collectible status with the IRS. We give you an email that explains how that's done. How much does HELPS cost? Well, first off, we don't turn anyone away that needs our help. The cost is minimal. Most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter. It could go down to $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, and $10 for 24 months, or free thereafter. But we make it fit. Okay. Can I keep a credit card? Yeah, like I said, you can still keep a credit card if you enroll in HELPS. In bankruptcy, all your credit cards are shut off, whether you owe them anything or not. Credit card companies subscribe to a service that lets them know if someone filed bankruptcy and they're going to cut your credit off. So how do I get enrolled with HELPS? Well, you call us on the phone. We're going to ask you some questions. You call us once, twice, 3 or 4 times. We save the information, and we literally, when you decide to enroll, we can click a button and enroll you immediately in HELPS. Okay? Are there any off-the-wall rules applying to Minnesota seniors? I don't see any seniors from Minnesota. We've got lots of clients from Minnesota, and I can't recall any off-the-wall problems with Minnesota. Actually, there's no off-the-wall problems anywhere. Okay? Beth Ann says, high credit card debt, Social Security, disability, and long-term disability dependents. My bank account checking with Bank of America, and I have an IRA I inherited with Merrill Lynch, and they're tied to Bank of America. Concerned they can get those funds. No. No. They're not going to do that. If you were concerned about it, then you could just change your bank account to a different bank. But they're not going to. They can't garnish your IRA. Or your Social Security. Bank of America can't do that. Can you still do a reverse mortgage if you've been sued? Yeah. You'd want to talk to us about it. We explain to you what your rights are. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily prevent you from doing a reverse mortgage. Can you explain what I think is called tenancy by the entirety? Sure. There's different ways to own property. Okay. Tenancy by entirety is a way in many states where a husband and wife own property, meaning that you own it with your spouse, and then if one of you dies, the property automatically goes to the surviving spouse. So together, you don't own it. You each don't own 1/2 of the property. You own the entire property entirely together. So it's tenants by the entirety. A kind of a synonym with that be is joint tenants with rights of survivorship. You could own a piece of property with, you and your wife and maybe your kids as joint tenants with survivorship rights, which is kind of like the same thing as tenants by entirety, except it's for people that own property together that aren't married. Okay? So this person contacts us from Hawaii. I received a summons at my home this past Saturday to appear in court on Monday, next Monday. Says I won't pay it because the bank added on over $400 in penalties and fees to this account. I'm a disabled senior citizen on small monthly Social Security disability payments, still caring for 2 teenage children with no additional income. You don't need to worry about it. They can get a judgment against you. They can't touch your Social Security disability. All forms of Social Security are protected. And if they sued you, you'd want to make sure that you just have one bank account, and that's the account to which your Social Security is deposited, and keep the balance in there less than twice the amount of Social Security you get each month. That way your bank will automatically protect that money, like I've explained. So this person contacts us from Kentucky. Says, I'm 65 and I have accounts that went delinquent, and 3 of them are suing me. I'm on disability. I was forced on disability and then Social Security from a failed surgery. Other than that, I have good credit. I'm worried about them trying to take my disability and get a bank lien against me. I talked to a bankruptcy attorney who told me to file bankruptcy. Then I saw a YouTube video with one of your attorneys, which was probably me, talking about that at 65 you wouldn't file bankruptcy and that your company could handle all the do not calls and do not disturb creditors for me. I have 2 car payments that I'm current on, and I have 9 open credit cards that I'm current on. If it wasn't for that surgery, I would not have any debts at all. Thank you. Yeah, if your only income is Social Security, um, it's protected. You can have disability on top of that, pension, even small wage. It's going to be protected. You don't need to file bankruptcy. Now, it says here you got 9 credit cards you want to keep. That's what they said. And I have 9 open credit cards that I'm current on. That's a lot of credit cards to have. If you're only getting Social Security disability, you could still keep them if you want. Got to use them once in a while. I'm assuming that they're small balances. Okay. After sending them a cease and desist letter, does that mean that they will try to sue you? It doesn't necessarily mean if my debt is medical debt in the amount of $500. Does it cost them more? Don't they have to pay fees to drag you into court to sue you? Yeah, they do have to pay a fee to file a court case. In fact, in some states, a large majority of the lawsuits that are filed in the state courts are filed um, by debt collectors. And I think Maine has an interesting law they put into effect. If you're a debt collector in Maine or suing in a Maine court, you got to pay an extra fee. Part of that money goes to the court system to help pay for the up for the court. A lot of these fees that courts charge for lawsuits don't cover the cost of a lawsuit for the court. The taxpayers end up having to fund it. And so sometimes these debt collectors take advantage and file these lawsuits because the court fees aren't that high. But in Maine, they've corrected that. They've raised the court fees for debt collectors. And also part of the money goes to legal aid to help support nonprofits that represent people to help people. So, so if we send a cease and desist letter, does that mean they're going to sue you? They could. In my opinion, it's less likely they would sue. When we send out a cease and desist letter, it's going to explain to a debt collector that your income Social Security can't afford to pay it. And I would think if they read it, they would realize by suing you, it's going to be a waste of their money and this person knows their rights. But they still could sue. Okay. Are they going to sue for $500? They could. It's kind of, at some point, the cost for suing doesn't make sense, and that's getting down close to it. So this person writes in, they say, Eric, do people need to wait for all the credit card debts to be charged off before they can get a secured credit card and start rebuilding credit? No, no. What does it mean charge off? Well, usually if a creditor tries to collect from you after about maybe 6 months, they're going to charge off the card, turn it over to a collection agency. But you could always try to, get a secured credit card. That's where you put money up front and then you get a credit card that you pay on to try to help rebuild your credit. Once again, we don't help people rebuild their credit. That's not what we do, but we do farm that out to a company called 720 Credit Score. We pay them a fee each month to provide a class to our clients that want to rebuild their credit. So that doesn't cost our clients any money. Okay. And you can always call us and we can send you an email that explains about that class and how it works. But you wouldn't enroll it till after you've been part of HELPS for at least 90 days. Okay. Okay. Someone asked, what about money in a 401k and an IRA? Are these protected from garnishment? The answer is yes. I did receive an official looking demand letter, but reading both sides of the document. Oh yeah, I remember this one. So the front and back on this letter, demand letter. The last paragraph stated that the debt is too old to pursue and they won't attempt to collect unless you voluntarily make a payment against the debt. So what's that mean? Well, it means that different states have what's called a statute of limitation. In other words, they can't sue you if you haven't paid on the debt for a certain number of years. Let's say, for example, statute of limitations in your state is 6 years. Well, if it's been 6 years since the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment, then under the law, they cannot sue you. Now, you still owe the debt technically, and they could try to collect from you and make a demand, which this letter does, that this person talked about. But if you did make a payment on it, then you re-up the statute of limitations. They've got 6 more years to try to sue you then or collect from you. So they try to tell you to make a payment, and then at the very end they're telling you, it says the last paragraph stated that the debt is too old to pursue and they won't attempt to collect unless you voluntarily make a payment against the debtor. I had someone call me. Well, I've had call me and say, gee, Eric, this debt's 20 years old, and they sent me a collection notice. Well, okay, what was a postage stamp cost? 50 cents, and then a little bit for the paper. They send out hundreds of these, thousands of them, and they're hoping that someone is going to make a payment or going to make that someone doesn't know their rights and will start paying the debt. Then they can start pursuing it again. Okay. Okay. I wanted to talk about this for a few minutes since it's Thursday. I talked to a lot of clients that, a lot of seniors that maybe have a car payment they can't afford. Too expensive. Okay. Or maybe the car went back and, but they want a car. Or maybe you're locked into a car with a $400 payment and it just, you can't afford it. You have no equity in the car. You can let it go back. Well, what do you do if you need a car? Well, okay. I do have an email that we call affordable transportation, and I'll see if I can. There we go. So I just picked out of the sky. I just guessed on the city. I said, okay, Denver, Colorado, and I got on Craigslist for a few minutes, and I typed in where it says for the question, typed in runs good, and the most price I put on, I didn't put a minimum, but I put 2,000 for a maximum, and just to see what would crop up. And this is just an idea, you know. So, for example, here's a Toyota Camry, 1950. Yeah, might not because it needs a new hybrid battery. You wouldn't want that one. 2005 Honda Accord, radiator is cracked. You wouldn't want that one. Toyota Solara, runs and drives, lost keys, clean title. Well, you got to have a key to start it up to drive it away. Um, Here's a Mazda. Runs and drives great, but it's got a cracked windshield. I don't know how bad the windshield is. So the purpose, without going over this, the purpose is, um, if you need a car, if you search around, I found that you can find cars that are pretty cheap that you get on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, and I usually search owner only and runs good. Okay, and you can usually find a car that that might they might be able to afford. You might be able to save up to get that car. Owners generally don't advertise a car as being as good condition unless it is. Now, a car lot sells used cars as is. They don't have to tell you if there's a problem, but normally private parties will give you what, you know, an owner, because they don't want you calling them back the next week saying, hey, you sold me a piece of junk. Why didn't you tell me that? So usually people that are on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace are pretty honest about the cars. Like the ones I just read, they told about the problems. But if you look enough, there'll be someone you can might be able to find a decent car. But once again, it's up to you. Okay. Okay, just a second here. So let's buy a car for cash. I've got an email that explains that in detail. If you want more information, call us up. We can send you that form email. So this guy made a comment on one of our videos, and he says, I'm 68, I'm divorced, I'm stuck with my wife's $100,000 in credit card bills. Thanks for the help. That's all he said. Well, okay, if the credit card bills were in your wife's name alone, you're not stuck on them. You don't have to pay them. You can call and talk to us about this kind of stuff. Divorces can get kind of complicated, but um, bottom line is your Social Security is protected. Can't be taken from you. Probably don't need to pay that wife's credit card bills. You probably don't have the money to pay them in the first place anyway, and so you can be protected from collector harassment if you want to be. Are vehicles protected from creditors if they are owned husband and wife jointly? Well, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, Tom, that soon gets a judgment to come after your car. Now, if your car's being financed and they have the title, then that's a different matter. But if someone sues you and gets a judgment, see, almost all states have exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity, for example, in a car. So your car's protected. Now, let's say the judgment was just, let's say you had a free and clear car, and the judgment was just against you, but the car was in both your and wife's name. No, creditor couldn't go after it. Even if it was in your name alone, it's not their practice to go after it. So there shouldn't be a problem for you. So this guy calls us from Maryland. Oh, I talked to him yesterday. 85 years old. He wanted one of our paralegals, but he was on the phone. She was on the phone, and I kind of twisted his arm to let me talk to him. I could tell you didn't really want to talk to me at the beginning. You didn't know who I was. Finally, I told him, well, I'm the guy that how'd you find us? There's a video. Well, I'm the guy that was on the video. And he said, oh, okay. No, I'll talk to you. He got 1,500 in Social Security. He gets food stamp. He gets SNAP. He doesn't rent. He rents and doesn't own a car or have any other assets. He has debt in debt consolidation. He's making a payment to a debt settlement company. And I can guarantee you they never told him that his income was protected. He didn't need their help. Instead, they signed him up, make him in poorer than he already was. Not only that, he said the reason he found us, he said he just got 2 summonses from Credit One. Oh, these are the notes from the paralegal that talked to him that he wanted to talk to her. I can see now why he wanted to talk to her. She says the potential client was downright jubilant by the end of our conservation and plans to read the emails, exit the debt consolidation contract, and call back to enroll. Yeah, that's why he wanted to talk to. She says he was jubilant because he found out he didn't need to worry about the lawsuit anymore. We could protect him from that harassment, and he didn't need to worry about paying this debt management or debt settlement company. No wonder he's jubilant. And I ended up enrolling him yesterday. I had some time and I talked to him and got him enrolled. Didn't want him to worry. So this person contacts us from Texas. This is kind of a long one. I'll try to make it brief, but he got an RV, 58 years old. He's the only one on the RV. The wife isn't on it. The only thing he wants to do is give up that RV. He's got some credit card debt, but he wanted to keep paying that. Well, that's fine. We read him what we did, but he was pretty adamant that he wanted to keep all his other credit card debt, which is fine if you want to. You can. Got a home. RV is way too expensive. They don't use the RV, and they don't have a vehicle to tow it with any longer. He's feeling guilty. He has never missed a payment. And we told him how it could be surrendered. Should I ask if they would negotiate with the deficiency? Normally, they're not going to do that. If they did that with you, they have to do it with everyone, and so they don't. You could ask them, but they're going to say no. So he ended up enrolling with helps. So if you've got an RV, fifth wheel, camper, trailer, a motor home that you drive, can't afford it anymore, you can let it go back. I always tell people, uh, the time to let them know that you're not going to keep it is you got to be behind on the payment, and they call you about a missed payment. If you call them when you're current on everything, you'll never get through to the right person. Or if you call them out of the blue, just wait till you're behind, and the person that calls you when you're behind, they'll know what to do. You can let it go back. They're going to sell it probably for less than what you owe, and they're going to send you a letter called a deficiency notice. And if you're part of helps, get us that. We'll send a letter to the lender, let him know that you can't afford to pay it, not to bother you anymore. Person contacts us from Missouri. Age is 68, and his income's only $1,000 a month. And it's Social Security. He lives with someone. He doesn't have a car. Only debt he has is a little bit less than $10,000 in medical debt that's hounding him. And he doesn't know if they've sued him or not. Usually no, because someone's knocked on the door and give you the paperwork. Anyway, he was really worried about it, and we enrolled him in helps at a discounted fee. And it says he was relieved. That's what we do. We represent you so that collectors have to leave you alone, and we represent you ongoing. See, the magic about helps is not just one time, it's literally forever. So if you have a question or concern, you can pick up the phone and you call us no matter how often. Okay? So the person calls in, this is their note. They say, I'm 74 years old, and I was divorced several years ago and lived beyond my means after the divorce. This has racked up about $30,000 in credit card debt. And you get 1750 survivors benefits, Social Security survivors benefits. Says my rent is $1,900, so I'm way over budget and will soon not be able to live here. I will owe taxes on income for this year. I kind of doubt it. If your only income is Social Security, you're not going to owe any taxes. But I've taken a large amount from my tiny retirement account. So anyways, he pulled money from his retirement, so he may owe some taxes. And he may be able to get on currently not collectible status and not have to worry about those taxes. We'll talk to him about that. He's got $100,000 in retirement monies left over. He says, I just take out money when I need it. And he concludes by saying, I'm terrified, lonely, and can't seem to quite get a plan together. Thinking about going back to work, but I don't feel well. I haven't worked in 10 years. I'm a bit stuck. So if you're terrified, lonely, and can't seem to get a plan together, call us. We'll talk to you about your situation. I'm pretty sure after we're done talking to you, you're going to feel a lot better. At least I hear that all the time. Okay? Doesn't cost anything for you to talk to us. Okay? And, if you decide to enroll in helps, we don't need any money up to enroll in helps. Payment usually doesn't begin till 30 or 60 days after you enroll. And it's minimal, like I explained. Don't want you to worry. Terrified, lonely, and can't seem to quite get a plan together. We're good at talking to you about the laws and what can happen, and pretty much, lay things out. And the plan is kind of obvious. So this person, they call and they say, do I have to call the credit card companies to tell them I can't pay? No, I don't want you to call them. You don't need to call them. If you call them out of the blue to say I can't pay you guys, the person on the other line isn't going to know what to say. They might have an accent. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, you do not need to call them and tell them you're not going to pay. I tell people that enrolling helps, maybe 1 out of 5 is being sued, 3 or 4 out of 5 are behind in getting credit card getting calls, and maybe 1 out of 5 is completely current on everything. It doesn't matter where you are. Okay, this will be my last one for today. Guy, he says, if I have 2 credit cards with the same bank, I've asked this before, but people keep asking the same question, which is fine. So yeah, we answer a lot of the same questions here on YouTube Live, which is fine. If I have 2 credit cards with the same bank and both are maxed out, one being charged off and the other paid on time. So he's got 2 credit cards and same bank, and apparently one he hasn't paid, the other one he keeps making the payment on. Would the bank, knowing that if they cancel out the card that's still being paid on time, actually go ahead and cancel it? Which is like them cutting their own nose, being that they're collecting interest on the card. Yeah, you can expect they're going to cancel the card if they haven't already. Yeah, if you have 2 cards with the same bank and you don't pay one, they're going to cancel both. I suppose there's exceptions. We always ask clients, do you have a credit card with a small balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And the answer is, the client says yes. We'll say something like, as long as that card isn't backed by a bank with whom you have another card you're not going to pay, you'll be able to keep that credit card. Banks don't care about other debt not being paid as long as they're being paid. But if you had a credit card backed by the same bank that you weren't going to be paying, then you can expect that both cards will eventually be closed. Okay, so it's Thursday, another week. If you have any questions, you can make comments in the comment. I'll try to answer them there. You need a sign on the wall behind you that says your Social Security is protected. Well, I do have this right here. That's FDR signing the Social Security bill. And right behind him is Elizabeth Perkins. She was FDR's Secretary of Treasury. Secretary of Treasury? Secretary of Labor? I forget which one. First woman cabinet secretary in the history of the United States. And she was Secretary of Labor in New York. And when Roosevelt, because he was governor of New York, When he got made president, he asked her, "Will you be my Secretary of Labor for the federal government?" And she said, "Yes, under one condition." This was 1935, in the middle of the Great Depression. "If I can set up a program to help seniors and also help men that are lose their jobs and also for men that are hurt." So she kind of founded unemployment, workers' compensation, and most importantly, Social Security. She had a husband who was seriously ill. She spent time in I don't know, was it some Presbyterian convent? She would go there and she'd pray about this and really contemplate things. And Roosevelt told her, he said, "I don't want a program that's on the dole. It's got to be something people to pay for." And she said, "That's right." So she founded Social Security, but he got the credit for it. And I can remember when I was in high school, I had an assignment and I had to get a quote or something from someone about Roosevelt. I'm not political here, but I did ask my grandfather about Roosevelt. Now, my grandfather was born in 1900 and had 6 kids. So when the Depression hit, he was 29 years old with a family. And he wrote his biography. And I almost tear up thinking about things he wrote about. It was tough to raise 6 kids during the Great Depression. But when I asked about Roosevelt, first thing he said was, "He saved us. He saved us." So he was a poor working man, and he obviously loved Roosevelt. So we're thankful for Social Security. We all should be, and we're thankful for Elizabeth Perkins and for her having the fortitude to do this. Okay, so I want to thank you for your participation today, and I will talk to you Monday. It'll be at the regular time on Monday. Thursdays it's 2 hours later, but Monday it's the regular time. So God bless, and everyone have a good day. Bye. If I get this thing to shut down.